Today is the 8th of July 2020 and my name is Joan. I want to relate a story. It's a bit old now at this stage, though I suppose it's still ongoing, to do with microwave radiation, a cell tower, etc. I'll first start off with a story. A woman who was in a class of mine, I was in, about 2009, she was sitting beside me, a fiddle player, and it was during the swine flu vaccine scandal, or before the rollout of it. And her story was her mother suffered very badly from morning sickness when she was expecting her. And so she went to her doctor and she was given the drug Thalidomide. Is that how you pronounce it? Thalidomide? Oh, well, anyway, it's something like that. And which was used then. And her mother went home and her intuition just said no, she wasn't going to take them, the tablets, and she threw them down the sink. And of course the result, if her mother had taken them, her daughter, who was sitting beside me with her fiddle, could have been born with the disability Thalidomide. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right. So my point is, with these things like DDT, that drug that was prescribed for women who had major morning sickness, asbestos, it usually takes about 50 years before people cop on, or it becomes illegal, or it's banned. And the same goes for microwave radiation. And when we think of microwave radiation, we think of microwave ovens. That's usually what people think. They just think of microwave radiation and ovens. They don't think any further than that. I hope it doesn't take 50 years for the knowledge to be found and for microwave radiation to be banned. I'm not sure about the other things like DDT, asbestos, etc. But all the information regarding microwave radiation has been out for decades. Most of the research was done in the 60s, and it was first experimented and used back in 1932, and specifically for military warfare. So yeah, all the information is out there already. All the scientific studies, all the research, thousands and thousands. So in this chat of mine, I'm not going to refer to the facts or the details, because I've kind of put them all to the back of my mind now. I did a lot of research a few years ago, and the people to look up for presentations and research, I'll just give two examples, is Barrie Trower, Barrie Trower, who's in the UK. He's an ex-British military expert in weaponry, and in America a retired professor of biomedical something or other, Martin L. Pall, P-A-L-L. I think I'll just record a bit at a time. So it might come across really dry as shite, this recording, but I've got to somehow get it down and verbalise it. So my first image or memory of microwave radiation or mobile phones, I can see an image of, I was with friends in a bar in a basement in St. Stephen's Green shopping centre. Must have been the 80s. I'm not sure. Anyway, we were there for a drink, and there was a guy at the bar, leaning against the bar. I can see him, kind of wearing a long trench coat. Maybe I'm making that up, but like, you know, a raincoat, trench coat, you know, like a businessman suit underneath. And he had a brick of a mobile phone. They were literally the size of a brick, and he was there posing with it. And he was the only person in the place with such a device. So we kind of chuckled or whatever, you know, that was that. And then move on to 2000, and I was given a present of a mobile phone, a Nokia, in a box, you know, nice object, and I stuck it into a press for about 3 months because I said, oh, I don't want to be dealing with looking at what do you call it? Come on, Joan. The manual, to read the manual, see how to work it. I just sort of said at the time, I don't want to deal with this. Anyway, I have no problem looking up instructions, etc. So finally, after 3 months, I took it out and read the instructions and fired it up. And sure, I was hooked. I mean, sending texts and receiving texts and, you know, beyond the dart and sending a text and getting a text. It was nice. It was like little postcards. And that kind of phone, I think it only could hold 10 texts at a time. And I think I remember, say, being on the dart and really hating if somebody rang. You know, you could hear somebody on their phone ringing somebody saying, I'll be there in 5 minutes. You know, ringing them from their mobile. And I was just like, I said, this is wrong. I mean, you know, back in the day, you know, you arranged to meet somebody, say at Trinity at the front gate or Cleary's, and somehow, and I can't remember how we did it, you'd arrange to meet them under the clock or at the gate at Trinity at a certain time. And if they didn't show up within 20 minutes, then you left. And there was no thought about ringing them or saying, I'll be there in 5 minutes. So there was me judging people on the dart, saying this is ridiculous. But I found myself doing it one day, actually ringing somebody from the dart saying, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Another comment at that time, I remember being with a bunch of people in Dunleary. We were sitting outside in a group, having something to eat, sunny day, and people had mobiles, you know, the button phones, and say somebody answered a call and was talking away on the phone, and I just thought it was rude. I just thought it was rude thing to do. So that's those memories. It's the 12th of July, 2020, and trying to continue this story about microwave radiation. And say somebody took a call, and I just thought it was rude, which it was actually, because you're there with a group of people, and now it's become normalised. So back then we were aware of using a mobile phone would cause brain cancer, tumours, and somehow we've all forgotten that, or people have forgotten that. And then those phones were 2G, strength. Don't ask me what strength the microwave radiation, but all the G's are in the microwave radiation spectrum. Why am I going over this? I'm trying to get to the point. There's lots of points actually. Right, fast forward to 2017, I moved into a house near an electric station, which I had concerns about, and pylons. And then I kind of said, well, maybe it's far enough away. What I was oblivious to was a huge, a big cell tower right in the middle of the electric station. And I moved in on details. And in hindsight, things weren't right from the start. So the Christmas of that year, I'm sitting on the couch feeling, I'm not feeling well. And I hadn't been feeling well on and off throughout that year. It's very hard to describe symptoms. So I decided to turn on the Wi-Fi on my laptop to check, was it the next door neighbour's Wi-Fi? That was all I was conscious of at the time, because I only ever used wired broadband and had a button phone. And so I turned on the Wi-Fi, and yes, there was a signal coming from their router next door. I thought this was intrinsically wrong, that here was I in my own private residence, in my own resonance, and minding my own business, doing my thing, and their Wi-Fi was coming through the party wall. You know, if that was loud music, you know, that'd be wrong. But instead, we're dealing with something invisible coming into my private space. Still wasn't totally oblivious to the cell tower. Anyway, so what I did was get catering tin foil, and I covered all the party wall upstairs and downstairs with catering tin foil. And all I had then was the laptop to gauge how to reduce the signal, and I had somewhat. So but then I started researching. I did a huge amount of researching starting in January 2018, and I reached out to es-ireland.com, and I received a very supportive and nice email back from Cara, because I was looking for help of what to do with this situation I was in, because at that point I think I realised I was dealing with a bigger chestnut. There was a big, huge cell tower 600 metres away from me. So one piece of advice was to get a survey done, EMF survey. Another was to get an EMF meter. And really I should have got the EMF meter first, but I went with the EMF survey. And a man came down from Sligo, a German who's lived here a long time. And I made an appointment with him, and he came, and he was very super efficient, as Germans are. He had all the specialised equipment, super duper meters of all various types, to do not only the ordinary electricity in the house, but the various spectrums in the surrounding area and coming through the house. So so I got the report then from him, very detailed report. Yeah, I got the report to see what I was dealing with. And his advice was, one advice was to get Y-shield neck curtains. But with this situation, it just walking through kind of quagmire, really. So I was slow about getting the neck curtains. could have been a year later, I don't know. Anyway, I got one set of neck curtains to the front of the house and put up all the rails for the rest of the house. And it helped somewhat. But then, autumn of last year, how do I explain this? It's like what I had been dealing with for on a daily basis really hit home. I had bought myself an EMF meter. I had white shield curtains, the vol type, to the front of the house. I had the tin foil to the party wall and the front wall, not everywhere. And then I got the meter, and it just was, how do you word it? It was just shattering. The damage I had been putting myself, and stuck at stomach, it just gurgling away there. Damage myself and my dog I'd been putting myself through for the last 3 years. You know, and I've been through many things in my life, situations devastating, and this was like, you know, when you are curled up in a ball in a corner, whimpering with tears, you know, and you feel like your life, really you feel your life is at risk. I really thought I was going to die. And I'm not looking for sympathy doing this recording. I'm not looking for, oh, poor Joan. You know, it's just something I went through. I went through it and I faced it. So I have an image of me going around with the meter and realising the levels of radiation, because there's a cell tower 600 metres away, and it's in direct line with another one about 9 kilometres away, and my house is right bang in the middle of it. You know, this invisible technology that's based on military weaponry going right through my house. So I have an image of me sitting on the floor where I'm sitting now, looking at my feet and just whimpering with tears, because I knew I had to deal with it. I could almost hear my father say, pick yourself up. You're going to face this. And I thought of Ernest Shackleton, actually, of all people, and I re-looked at a documentary of his about, you know, the endurance ship, and Ernest Shackleton and all the crew faced into this very dangerous situation. And I'd read one of the books about that, Worsley, excellent book. And I knew I had to just like be Shackleton, you know, think of the spirit of Shackleton, just face into this situation, just face into it and deal with it. So I looked up white shield neck curtains again, and I knew I had to get the much stronger neck curtains called Ultima. And I dithered because the price of it, you know, I needed to get 10 metres of, you know, I'd worked out how much I needed, 10 metres worth, and it was going to cost me €1,000. But I bought it anyway, and I'm glad I did. And I finally got the material and took it in stages and rolled it out, measured it out, cut it, and upstairs on a big floor, and cut it, measured it. I'm always very careful when I do things, you know, in stages, and pinned it, and I actually hand sewed it all, even though I have a machine. Hand sewed each curtain one by one, facing into this storm where I literally thought I was going to die. It's really hard to describe how under threat I was. Now, I'm electric sensitive, so I feel it. And physically, every day, I was suffering. You know, and that just sounds like I'm taking the fiddle out here. But I was in a war zone. In the middle of a war zone. I'm still here actually, but it's a different scenario now. So I got those curtains put up. I was getting tentative support from, it was a YouTuber who'd ramble on for an hour about, you know, what he'd done to make curtains and everything. And it just, you know, to get some support. Anyway, this is not working out, Joan, at all. It's not. Press pause. I'm not going to justify it. Really, am I? So in hindsight, and anyway, just faced into it. Made the curtains. And I brought down the levels. But upstairs then, the amount that was coming through the ceiling. So I got gold mylar blankets and taped the mylar blankets on all the ceilings upstairs. And amazingly, that brought it down a lot too. So finally I had some level of safety within the house so I could recover. Also on top of that, during the summer prior to that, I had bought myself a pop-up tent. I already had a good tent, but there was a pop-up small one for sale somewhere, and I just bought it. And it ended up, for sleep, because with the radiation, you need to, when you're sleeping, your cells need to recover and replicate themselves, and that's the time they do it, when you sleep. And if you are in the middle of radiation, microwave radiation environment, you don't, and you can't sleep well, etc. So I found myself, I put the pop-up tent up in the sitting room, eventually ended up in the sitting room, and I had leftover White Shield neck curtains, one of the Vol, the lighter version, and the Ultima, and that's, I placed that over the tent, clipped it on, and since October that's where I've been sleeping, in a cocooned pop-up tent. It's not the way to live. Anyway, it did help, and it has helped, and I'm still there. This is a very minimum version of this. I couldn't have talked it out at the time. My war zone. And bizarrely, you know, why did I move to this house? You know, when I don't even use Wi-Fi. You know, I have a button phone. I use the wired broadband. Was it so that I'd wake up to it? Because I was oblivious to the situation. I was just minding my own business for all these years, you know, taking responsibility in that thing. There's other things I don't take responsibility in. But with the mobile phone and the wired broadband, I just followed my own intuition. And here I found myself right bang in the middle of a war zone because of this industry. Was it because I like to suffer on behalf of others? Maybe. Was it to wake myself up and tell others, maybe. I did do some work before Christmas with a group. You know, I spent a few weeks putting together all the county council emails together in the country to share with different groups in different county Facebook groups. There's 70 of them for the 5G. And when I mention 5G, it's just like all the other Gs. It's all microwave radiation. That is the basis of it. Oh, I'm going all over the place here. So I worked hard with that group, and I'd also emailed councillors during the summer. And in January, I had some success where I was driving up the town along the Shannon, and because of seeing some of Mark Steele's work and about LED lights and the antenna that's at the top, I copped on. I'm driving along, I knew where the LED lights and the little light sensor on the top, and behold, there was these new light sensors in brackets or in quotes that were a couple of inches long, and they were new, and I spotted them straight away. And I already knew that the council had put a moratorium on any 5G technology, so I emailed them with an email, and I took photographs, told them I'd taken photographs, and hoped that they would uphold their agreement for putting a moratorium on 5G. I mean, these councils are just plain ignorant. And lo and behold, well, first there was just the timing of it was perfect, because there was a county meeting that was on the Leitrim side the next day. Only one councillor emailed me back to say she would look into it. She never did email me back. But after the council meeting, what happened? All those new antennae that were in about 20 LED lights were all taken out and returned to the original light sensors, or which I hope are light sensors. So it was like a birthday present to me at the time. And then any work I was doing on that, because it was quite wearing, I stopped. I stopped doing any work to do with fighting the 5G, etc., etc. I could add more details. Anyway, so I had success with that. I presume. I mean, they never wrote back to me and said thanks very much, But I spotted what I saw was out of order, and out of the ordinary. The vast majority of people wouldn't have had a clue. And though Mark Steele is controversial just because he gets on his bandwagon given out, he is a military weapons expert, and he knows about microwave radiation being used as a weapon. So it's because of his work pointing out the antenna that I copped onto this, and the proof's in the pudding. They removed them, and I've taken readings around the town, and they're quite shocking. But on a personal, so going back to autumn, last year, I'm in a class, and they have Wi-Fi in the school, and everybody uses their smartphones in the class. And every now and again I'd ask them, please, could you turn your phones off? It was really hard to broach the subject, so difficult. Because I go into class and it'd be just fucking painful within an hour. And I'd have to leave, or I'd suffer it. And somebody said to me, you have to now just keep, because they just think you're mad, you just have to say in 4 sentences, I have a disability. It is, how was it worded? I have a disability and it's sensitive to radiation. And the radiation coming off your phones makes me really sick, ill. And could you please turn them off? So I actually read that out, and I really don't like, being this person who seems to be, looking for attention or, really difficult. So I read that out and there was silence in the class. And it was breakdown. They all went into their little groups. So the usual isolation thing. And I think they kept, it's not about the people. It's not about people. Everybody in the class was lovely. And say for a couple of hours they did leave their phones, off, or they, say we went into the polytunnel and they left them all in the classroom. And then there was a bit of a moan about, we can't take photographs, because of course everybody uses mobiles to take photographs. And I just said nothing, and within a couple of hours they all had them back on. See, the teacher got it. She said to me, I leave my phone outside now in the car. Or else she'd, she had the phone and she'd say, oh, Risa, I just need to make a phone call. And I said, it's okay. And everybody in the class was about my age, 40s, 50s, 60s. And the only person who actually, who and I didn't want them to, whatever. Anyway, this young woman in her 20s, she'd say, oh, I'm really sorry, Joan, that she'd have her phone on. And the rest of them, in one ear, out the other. Mind control is a very real thing. And of course, if people aren't sensitive, they're not going to get it. See, I don't think about it now. I just don't. I try not to. I've moved on that. So, there's me wanting to be in a class, want to be with nice people, and I can't. I physically can't. And I stopped going in. And and at the time I explained to the head coordinator, I had to email and say I have a war situation at home, explain, and all my time was spent making the curtains and getting my home safe, and I couldn't undermine myself further because by going into class. In other words, if I was in class, it just knocked me out for the rest of the day. Somebody had an analogy of, say, for instance, you're standing on a trampoline, minding your own business, in your own residence, and somebody hops onto the trampoline with a smartphone. And it's like as if they jump up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And then they jump off with their smartphone and you're left on your own again. And what happens? You're still jumping up and down. And that's how it was for me after I'd leave the class. I'd go for a walk in the woods and still my body, my cells would be jumping up and down for a couple of hours. It's all scientific fact. You can just look it up yourself about how it affects the blood cells. And because I had been chronically anemic when I was young and had ruined my young life, and brucellosis, I'd looked at the research and I knew what it did, what Wi-Fi did to blood cells. And I was terrified of going back there. Absolutely terrified of going back there. Because already it was affecting me. on a daily fucking basis. And it's really hard for me to talk about this. It's really hard for me to share it. You know, I've looked at documentaries or whatever where, you know, they're interviewing women in their tinfoil room, and even to my eyes, they look mad, you know, and maybe sometimes they are compensating for some unconscious thing. You know, let's say there was a woman in a room, totally tinfoiled, she was married, she had kids, and there she was in a tinfoil room in the house, and they even had to have her birthday in that room. But maybe she was super duper sensitive. But, you know, you think, well, there might be a bit of psychological stuff going on there too. And so you think, Jesus, do people think I'm like that? You know, and they probably do. So my explanation to the class, to the head coordinator, the teacher, I have this war zone, I have to deal with it. And I did. And say I went in on the last day, and then Christmas, and then I was in January, and nothing had changed, and I couldn't bring it to the head college. So I took time out. I had to take time out again. And at home I started boxing up everything that I possess, saying, well, you know, I might have to think about moving, you know, I don't know how I'm going to do that. So January was spent boxing everything I own and getting rid of things. And then in February I got the standard letter from the college, from the class, from the school, saying you have to come in because lack of time will take you off the router, the rotor or whatever you call it. And I was a bit peeved, briefly, that I hadn't been heard, because it was health officer, I got the, you know, blah blah blah, not doing their job. But see, if it's not in people's consciousness, it's not in people's consciousness, and you can't push it. Can't push it. And if it takes 50 years, I hope not, it takes 50 years. So I got the standard letter, and I just put it down to Joan. It's just a standard letter. There was another guy in class, he got one too, for other reasons. He'd have health issues. He was missing from class. So I went back in. Take it a day at a time. And I'd leave at break time, you know, because everybody was there Googling, looking up messages. It had nothing to do with the class. Sometimes it was to do with the class, they'd look up flowers or whatever. But it's not required in a class situation. Anyway, I'm not coming across right with this, but anyway. You know, and I really had to squash down to just people being plain ignorant. Well, a friend said on the phone, people being plain ignorant. You know, but you know, if I was epileptic, for instance, and they all had strobe lights, they'd know not to turn the strobe lights on. But that's in people's consciousness now. People aren't conscious with their smartphones. They just aren't. Oh, this is really boring me, because I just don't. This is the past. So I'd stay in class, and I had started wearing, since last autumn actually, if ever I went out, I had some leftover white shield neck curtains, and I made a kind of it was just a long piece, and I just put a slit in it, and I'd put it over my head, a bit like what they used to wear under cloth under chainmail, in fact. And it went to the front and to the back, and I put a belt around it. And I had to wear this going out and in class. And it really annoyed me, because, you know, you couldn't just wear whatever you were wearing. It looked nice to have this thing. And a headscarf made from the same Y shield material as a form of, so that, you know, because the sensitivity was so much. So the next thing, we get a pandemic. Great. So I suppose it answered my prayer. I didn't have to be in a Wi-Fi environment. You know, I could be just at home. Yeah. That wasn't done very well, I don't think, Joan, because it's like cashing out old stuff there, and it's not very useful. Useful because you see, I don't be banging on about it to people. I'm not. I gave it up. I stopped. Through the pandemic, I doing the garden. I go out with my neck curtain on to do the garden back and forth. And how to move on, I really don't know how I'm going to move on. You say move house, I won't be at the moment, because, you know, it'd be very difficult to put a house on the market, let alone with having a fluffy dog with hair, fur around the place, but trying to sell a place with tin foil on the gable walls, on the party walls, mylar blankets on all the ceilings upstairs, and then thick neck curtains to the front of the house, neck curtains to the back. I mean, you'd have a hard time trying to explain that, wouldn't you? So I have it protected as best I can, and much better than I dealt with for 3 years. You know, that's it. It's not completely true that I don't think about it every day. I guess the levels of it has reduced. But I'm reminded sometimes, no, every night, sometimes a lot, sometimes not. Next door neighbour, they seem to have, I don't know, since before Christmas bought themselves some kind of a monster of a Wi-Fi booster that they have located in their back room. And they turn it on every night at about 9 o'clock, or maybe later. Sometimes they turn it off, then about 11. Sometimes they leave it on all night. There's no rhyme or reason to it. But it's very powerful, and my tin foil and the mylar blanket on the back wall has no effect. And it comes through this noise. I suppose I could put in this recording the sound of they haven't got it turned on that the Wi-Fi booster, but anyway, the sound of Wi-Fi is there's zoom. I can't do it. You know, I know when they turn it on, and then of course I turn on my EMF meter to see that they have it on, and it comes right through the wall and right through upstairs too. There's no talking to them, and they've got young kids. That's their responsibility. And so I'd find myself just getting into my tent, you know, and listening to a radio programme. But I guess I've been on and off taking homeopathic remedies, and they've helped with it all. But Well, thank God they don't leave it on all fucking day. You know, I think they have the ordinary router out in their hallway. Like I used to have it out in the hallway. And then they've got this booster, and they don't realise how powerful it is. I could get another form of curtain material that would bounce it back, or else the material that you have to ground. So, no, I am, every day I'm reminded of it, but it's not as bad in a way as it was. So let's go to the front of the house and just, here's the back room. That's the level now. It's not much. I can hear a little bit. I'm going to the front of the house. So that's at 0.02, and I'm directly in front of the Ultima neck curtain at the front window. And if I put the meter on the glass side, it's up to 0.30 volts per meter. And that's what I was living with directly through my windows before I put these curtains up. Now back inside. What else have I got to say about all this? I don't think I did this very well. Now I'm back into the kitchen, and we're down to 0.01 volts per meter. Now I'm down to, it doesn't show on the meter now. What else have I got to say about all this? Yeah, no, I'm just going to leave opinions about the research and the reality and all that. I'll leave that up to other people. And I just tried to share as best I could, in hindsight, my experience. And a big thank you to Cara of es-ireland.com for her support. And also to the lady I bought the EMF meter off last autumn. Was very supportive in a few emails, really supportive. And Ernest Shackleton and his spirit of endurance. Over and out.